Millennial buying power could rocket to over $20 trillion by 2030, and these 10 stocks stand to benefit. Millennials have already surpassed boomers as the biggest consumer force, with over 72 million in the US alone and trillions of income. 6 out of 10 millennials have followed a brand for more than 10 years, and 70% say that they'd go out of their way to buy from that brand that they feel loyal to. And these kinds of intimate brands, the ones most followed by consumers, more than doubled the profit growth on Fortune 500 companies in the 10 years through 2018. All from that sense of loyalty. I'll be counting down through the 10 companies millennials can't live without and the stocks that could jump higher. Let's get started with number 10 on the list of millennial stocks with Nintendo, ticker NTDOY. But stick around because next I'm going to reveal how this list was created and the back-tested results that prove loyalty pays in stock returns. And gaming isn't just Castlevania and cheat codes on Contra anymore. It's big business. Ampere Analysis puts the world's consumer spending on console, hardware, software, and subscriptions at $61 billion, with 20% annual growth. And the rise of AR and VR technology could boost that growth into a $365 billion industry over the next few years. It is a three-way race here for leadership in gaming, though Sony does have a commanding lead with 46% of the world share. Nintendo is in second with just under a third of that market and a much more focused play on gaming. Shares of Nintendo trade on the over-the-counter exchange market, that OTC market in the US, under a ticker NTDOY and pay a very strong 3.5% dividend. And I am going to be very disappointed in my Gen X brothers and sisters if this one doesn't make our list next week. You didn't live in the 80s until you got blisters from the controllers or went partially blind trying to play Tetris on that 160 pixel black and green screen. We're just getting started, but I do want to show you how I found this list and why it's so important. Every year, ad agency MBLM conducts its brand intimacy study to find these companies that consumers connect with on an emotional level. They measure that connection through 6 needs as well as the depth and the intensity of the connection to find the most beloved brands for each generation. That millennial generation born from 1981 to 1996, putting them firmly between Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 and the Macarena by Los Del Rio, is just coming into its prime spending years. Their annual income surpassed that of Gen Xers in 2020 and is set to grow by another $8 trillion by 2035. That's as those baby boomers' income falls and Gen X just levels off. That will be spending power we have never seen before, and it could translate to massive profit growth for these companies. Looking back on the study of intimate brands, these most beloved companies saw an average profit growth of over 37% over the decade through 2018, more than twice the average for Fortune 500 companies, and 5 times the profit growth for S&P 500 companies. Back to our list though, and it's another gamer stock here. Shares of Xbox owner Microsoft, ticker MSFT. I think we're seeing a trend here, but there is a lot to like about Xbox owner Microsoft. Mr. Softy was an early investor in OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, and now that $10 billion stake that gives it access to that AI program. It's expanding that access into Office products, and the use in Bing search has many wondering if it can finally unlock some of Google's market share. And in fact, to tell you the truth, while that millennial brand love for Xbox is a good thing, Microsoft has fumbled its gaming ambitions. Phil Spencer, head of Xbox branding, recently admitted during a chat on an Xbox community YouTube channel that Microsoft has lost the console wars, coming in third to Sony's PlayStation and Nintendo. So instead of trying to get people to switch consoles, Xbox is going to now focus on Game Pass and xCloud and making sure that their games work seamlessly across all devices. Microsoft, the stock, has had an amazing year, up 33% on the strength in cloud and those AI hopes. Now shares popped 9% on its most recent earnings, adding $185 billion to the company's value, but this is a tough one for me. All you out there in the nation know I am a value investor to my bones, and Microsoft trades for 33 times on a price-to-earnings basis. That's about where it's traded over the last 5 years, so not necessarily expensive, but very pricey against other stocks in the market. I still think long-term investors can be happy with their returns, but shorter term, there might be some disappointment if the stock gives back some of those gains and comes down to earth just a little. No, it can't be gaming 24/7. Millennials take a break and watch YouTube, and that benefits number 8 on our list, Alphabet Inc., ticker GOOG. Alphabet dominates the online search market with 92% market share. In fact, it kind of makes any chart ridiculous with all the others barely registering a share. Search brings in $165 billion a year and extends to a network effect across YouTube and its Android ecosystem of apps. Add in growth from cloud services, and it's hard denying the company's leadership in tech. In fact, even on some weakness in advertising, the company managed to eke out revenue growth in the last quarter and is expected to post $267 billion in sales this year and $4.73 in earnings per share. Now that puts it well under the valuation on shares of Microsoft, so even though MSFT has that growth advantage, Alphabet might be the better investment on a balance between the cheaper valuation and still good growth. And now with Google, or Alphabet, besides just that value and the growth, I think there is a lot of hidden value here. Buying the shares, you're paying for that main search, cloud, and YouTube business, but I don't think the market has priced in anything from some of these other projects, the ride-hailing service, or a lot of the special projects Google owns. So you're getting all these other businesses like Waymo, DeepMind, a Calico, its life extension project. These are all like lottery ticket bonuses on top of that return from search and YouTube. Next on Millennials' minds, we find the world's largest public company, Apple, ticker AAPL. Now, I have to admit, I am a little scared of Apple. The trillion-dollar giant is probably the only company out there that can kill another company, and it always seems to be trying in one of my stocks, whether that be the fintech space with its Apple Pay or with healthcare. And it all goes back to that idea of brand strength. Apple has the kind of brand loyalty that virtually guarantees any product line it rolls out is going to win a following and take market share. In fact, Apple is one of only 2 companies that made it on the list for every generation, from millennials through Gen X and boomers. Let me know in the comments if you think you can guess the other company. So rather than be afraid of this category killer, maybe that means the best solution is just to invest in shares of Apple itself and benefit from it. Now, if you do invest, remember, one of the most important things an Apple investor can understand is its product cycle and how that affects the shares. Despite the many products, revenue is still driven by iPhone sales. 52% of total revenue, the darkest part of the graph here, is from iPhone sales, and that percentage has been increasing lately. So what tends to happen there, in those years when the company really doesn't have a great iPhone refresh, when people just keep their old phones and wait to upgrade, total revenue slumps and takes the stock price with it. We're seeing that this year with expectations for revenue to fall 13% to $344 billion and just 6% growth expected next year. These years are actually the best time to pick up shares, though, during that lull in the iPhone refresh. In the following years, the hype train builds on those new phones, total revenue jumps, and the stock price goes with it once again. This is a solid list of stocks to watch, but if you want to see the stocks I'm buying for the next 30 years, my forever stocks, check out the link I'll leave in the description below. It's a free report I put together with the Motley Fool, the 5 stocks I'm buying for 10x growth, my forever stocks. It's totally free. Just click through that link below and get your free report. And next on our list here, the only private company on the list, Jeep maker Fiat Chrysler. Now, we won't spend much time here since the company doesn't have shares of stock to buy, but it is interesting that each list of the most loved brands by generation had at least one car company, and Millennials and Gen X have 2. But nowhere did Tesla make those rankings. We see that other car company here in the 5th most beloved brand by Millennials, Ford Motor, ticker F. Now, it was interesting here for me that younger generation would have so much brand loyalty for these older car companies, with newer brands like Tesla not even on the list. I recently highlighted electric vehicles in a megatrend video with demand at just 7% of total vehicle sales in the US, but expected to reach 20% as early as 2023. That would be an additional 2.5 million EV cars sold every year by 2030, and 15 million a year by 2050, based on about 17.5 million cars sold a year in the United States. Of course, Tesla is still the runaway leader here in the space, but Ford is gaining fast, selling over 61,000 EVs last year to become the 2nd largest EV maker in the US. The company paused its production on F-150 in February, but maintains it can still reach 150,000 annual run rate in production, and 200,000 run rate for its Mustang Mach-E by the end of the year, tripling last year's production of the F-150. Now remember, it was only 2 years ago that this stock shot up to $20 each on that investor sentiment for the EV future. While the stock has come down with the rest of the market, shares trade for just 0.32 times on that price-to-sales basis. On expected sales growth of $170 billion through next year and modest 0.4 times valuation, we get to at least $17 a share for a 32% upside on the price, plus a very tempting 5% dividend yield. It's still young at heart, the 4th most beloved brand here, the Walt Disney Company, ticker DIS. Now, I'm not going to get into the politics here because I'm sure we'll get plenty of it in the comments, but it will be interesting to see how this holds up in our next year's survey. Whatever your view, though, it's hard to deny Disney's competitive advantage in media and entertainment. We've seen others try to tack together content and distribution, from AT&T to Paramount and Warner Brothers, but only Disney has seemed to be able to unlock the secret. That's because between the theme parks, media distribution with Disney Plus and Hulu, studio content through Marvel, Lucasfilms, Pixar, and 20th Century Fox, and its cable distribution with ABC, ESPN, and FX, Disney has that synergy of content and the distribution that no one else has been able to perfect. The company was able to reach 130 million subscribers on streaming 3 years ahead of schedule. It took Netflix more than a decade to reach that, and Disney is now estimating as many as 245 million plus subscribers by 2024. That's a target the company revised lower in August on that slowing growth, but would still make it the king of streaming. And now why I think Disney has that competitive advantage over some of these other streaming providers is because of that studio business and other content. You see, one of the biggest worries I have about streaming stocks is it's getting ridiculously expensive to produce all those shows. We're seeing it come through on lower profitability in Discovery, Paramount, even Netflix. But Disney, with its movie and cable studios, is able to continuously pump out those new shows that people want to see. Our shares have slumped for more than a year, and Wall Street expects a 4% drop in sales this year to $80 billion for $3.66 in per-share earnings. It's not quite a value stock territory, but it's getting there, and anything under $100 a share is likely going to be a good long-term investment. Just 3 more millennial stocks to watch, but further supporting this idea of generational brand investing, I looked into the returns on the most followed Gen X stocks over the past 10 years. Starting in 2013, when my generation was just putting that growing income into its favorite stocks, over the last decade, the stocks have produced an average 16.5% annualized return, well above the 11% return on the S&P 500, and 4 of the stocks more than doubled that yearly return. We're getting back to that list, but I'm curious to see where the Bowtie Nation comes down on this. What are the companies and stocks you can't live without? Don't think about it, just comment below the first 3 companies or stocks that come to mind. We're into the top 3 brands with the Target Corporation, ticker TGT. Here, Target was the biggest surprise for me on the list. It didn't make the list of Gen X or Boomers, but then Walmart didn't make all 3 lists either. Target's brand strength with the millennials, though, could give it one of the best upsides on the list. The shares have given back almost all the pandemic bump and trade at a relatively attractive valuation. Now you see, on a valuation basis, shares of Walmart trade for an expensive 25 times earnings versus just 18 times PE for Target. Now that's despite a cost-cutting program helping Target to deliver expected profit growth of 20% this year against flat earnings growth for Walmart. Now Walmart has been winning lately because it has that stronger grocery component, which has helped pull shoppers into the store more often and drive revenue. But if Target can capitalize on this brand loyalty with its millennials, it could produce the better long-term return over the next 5 or even 10 years. Number 2 on our list is no surprise, with more than half of millennials reporting they are frequent online shoppers. Shares of Amazon, ticker AMZN. Amazon dominates its 2 core markets with nearly 60% of the US e-commerce market, a number no other company can even come close to matching. Amazon also controls a third of the global market for cloud services, 50% more than its next largest competitor. And when you've got that kind of market control, it's an advantage the company can use to across all its products and services. Revenue has doubled in the last 3 years and is expected to hit $500 billion next year. And just like we saw with Google, I think the market is underestimating shares of Amazon. For a share of Amazon, you're basically paying for just that valuation on the core e-commerce platform and its Amazon Cloud Services business, but you're also getting the Alexa venture investments in AI, voice, and other tech innovations. And there is evidence that that core valuation itself may be undervalued. Activist investor Dan Loeb made news last year when he estimated $1 trillion in hidden value for these shares if you just valued the 2 segments, cloud and e-commerce, separately in a split of the company. That would make it a $2.5 trillion company and more than double the current stock price. We're coming up on the most followed company by millennials, one that has won the hearts and the minds of the group. But building a portfolio means more than just picking stocks. Check out the video here for 3 different investing goals and the stocks that will get you there. How to invest $1,000 right now. And the company with the most loyal following of millennials, PlayStation maker Sony Group, ticker SONY. But now this brings us as investors to the most important question of this idea. Does that brand loyalty persist for the same products as the generation gets older? What I mean here is we're going to see that the brands for millennials look very similar to those Gen X brands when we explore those next week. But then there's a huge shift to baby boomer brands. So will the millennials' love of gaming and that massive spending power of the generation continue to benefit Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo even as that younger generation ages out of Call of Duty and into carpools? That said, Sony's dominance in gaming should continue to support its growth, and shares are attractively priced. The stock trades for just 15 times on a PE basis, less than half the valuation we saw with Microsoft. And again, I think there is an undiscovered opportunity for monetization in gaming that could be unlocked over the coming years, which would boost growth for all three of these gaming companies on the list. Get your free report, My Forever Stocks, with the link below, or click on the video to the right for how to invest $1,000 this year. 3 different portfolios for 3 investor goals. Don't forget to join the Let's Talk Money community by tapping that subscribe button and clicking the bell notification.